welcome to the Prepared Mind. Tonight's beverage is a Jack and Coke. And when I consider SHTF and the end of the world, I like to sit down with a bottle of Jack and just get sauced. Wouldn't that be great if they did commercials like that? They were a little bit more realistic about it. You just had a hard day with your boss, but instead of kicking his ass, you've decided to get sloshed, and we're there with you. Anyways, tonight's video is called SHTF, Bug Out or Bunker In and Fight to the Death. I've thought about this video a lot, and I've been putting it off and putting it off and putting it off because I didn't feel like I had enough information to put a video out there. Now I do. I've read books, I've watched videos, and I've interviewed several people, several preppers who have different ideas about what's important. I know how I'm going to operate, and I'm not going to talk about how I'm going to operate. But I'm going to talk about lots of different ideas, and if someone wants, they can guess what I'm up to. But I'm not going to tell you. All right, so the situation that I'm describing, and I'd like to know what you think is prudent and wise. Okay, but the situation I'm describing is about a month into SHTF. You've gotten comfortable with no power as much as you can. You've got your preps, you're all set up, and about a month in, you hear that a marauder group is coming. And they're coming down the street, right? They're coming towards you. And they don't move very fast. They just slowly go along, chewing up territory and taking their toll on people. So the question is do you bug out? Do you grab your bags, grab what you can carry and run for it, knowing that you may die if you stay and fight? Or do you bunker in even harder? Do you harden your house and fight them to the death? My first answer was fight to the death. My second answer was, fuck that, I'm going to bug out, and then if they mess with my house, I'll snipe their asses. Do a little recon for a few days and follow them around and put the hurt on them. Okay, I love to use the word sniper, but, loosely, picking them off from a distance. I know that you real sniper guys out there take that really serious, and I've ran across a few of you guys out in the bush training, and it's a lonely, messed up life. And I actually knew a Marine Corps sniper who had several assassinations under his belt. Interesting character. Took a long time before we actually found out what he did during Vietnam. Anyways, that's a side note. Would I bug out or would I bunker in and fight to the death? I think there's a lot of merits to both. I'm going to go with the first one. It's a very popular idea, and that's to spread your cache of food, weapons, and supplies over 2, 3, or 4 areas, right? So that if you get chased from any one area, you've got supplies at the other areas. That's a great, fantastic idea, but I do have some problems with it. Say you've got 2 years worth of food, and you've divided it into 4 areas. And there are 5 miles between each area. When your 6 months is up, that means you've got to move your entire base of operations that 5 or 10 miles, however far away it is from one to the other. Okay, and if you're planning that far ahead and you're that well equipped and that well funded, odds are it's going to be a convault or a cabin or some sort of more comfortable facility than just living in a hole in the ground or in a tent. And so there are some good chances that other people are going to find your other 3 locations. So unless they're hidden very well or they're extremely remote, there's a chance you're going to lose those other 3 anyways. But in the scenario we're discussing, marauders are coming at you. It would be very easy to say, why stay and die when I know I've got 3 other locations that are not compromised, or I think they're not compromised. I've got 18 months behind me in supplies still. So why would I risk, these last 5 at this one place, at my primary place of safety? So that's my problem with that idea. It'd be great to be able to just pull bags and bug out and hit one of your other places. The drawbacks is someone may acquire them, or along the way you could get shot and have your stuff taken from you. Okay, we're only 1 month in. There's going to be plenty of marauders and plenty of desperate people who didn't prepare correctly. So you could be killed along the way. And the other problem I have with that is, and this is for bugging out for anybody, no matter what your situation is. If you have children, they don't like to do forced marches, 5, 10, or 15 miles, especially while being shot at or stalked. Women, again, some women are tough. I love to pick on women because there's a lot of soft women out there, and I appreciate them. But they may not be up for a 10-mile hike while getting shot at. Okay, they may want to stay bunkered in. How about the elderly, those with handicaps or other infirmities? They're going to have a little bit of trouble bugging out and getting to other locations after a month. Okay, so that's what I feel about this, separating your stuff out. You risk losing it. So while it would be easy to bug out and just avoid the conflict altogether, you face other risks doing that. So the other solution is to bunker in. What do you face in a bunker in situation? You're going to make it your last stand, right? I've got all of my supplies right here. I didn't want to take a chance spreading myself thin. I didn't want to take a chance on losing it or having to move or having to hike 5 miles and carry 6 months of food back over the course of a couple of weeks, back and forth, because your primary place you like the best. And that's why you chose it as your primary place. And every 6 months, you got to start bringing supplies back from your other locations. That's a lot of walking, a lot of hiking, and a lot of exposure to people you don't want to be exposed to. So that is why I look at spreading things thin as a bit risky. And you have to understand the work that it entails to do that. The planning, the work, the financing, and of course the risk of losing it. So what does it mean to stay in? If you don't want to spread yourself thin and play that game, your odds are bugging in, or your chance of, bunkering in. How do you do that? The marauders are coming. It's 1 month into SHTF. And they're coming for you. They're going to find your house. So who's going to be most likely to take this attempt, right? Someone with a small, well-trained group may say, fuck it, this is our last stand. Okay, how about the elderly? And again, people with handicaps or the inability to move and bug out. They're going to fight to the death. And a woman I talked to today said, she's lived in her house for a long time. She's secure there. She knows the area very well. And it's all she has. And protecting her family would be something that she would do to the death. She knows that if she tried leaving, she would be run down or taken captive, right? So why even risk that when she can risk something she's very familiar with and knows the terrain and has a better chance of defending than taking it to the hoof and trying to get someplace else? So I know there's a lot of varying opinions. Okay, if you've got a good fortified or hardened bunker location, right? Whether it's underground or you made your house out of concrete, whatever your case is, whether you insulate it with sandbags, 5 feet up the walls so that you can take a fair amount of fire without taking a lot of possible casualties. What is it the marauders are going to be doing? After a month, they're going to be looking for easy targets, and they'll probably address the hard targets. I'd like to ask you to remember your history of warfare, in particular siege history. Fortified cities used to have big walls, anywhere from 5 to 15 or 25 feet thick, and they could withstand a siege from an army that had trebuchets and catapults, and that would run sappers underground and try and blow the walls out from under the city so they could enter it. But the trick with the siege was outliving your opponent. Right? You couldn't do a whole lot from the walls of your castle because your enemy would bring bigger gun and trebuchets, and they could fire on you from a greater distance, hopefully they thought, than you could address them with your weapons. So the siege would take place, and it became in a lot of cases a waiting game. And that's, of course, when the sappers would buy their time. Say they had enough food for a 2-month or a 3-month or a 6-month siege. They would try and dig out and get under those walls. and blow them out from under them, and then rush the city. But the siege is the important part of this. If it's shit, it's the fan, and there's a group of marauders, and they're coming at you, and you know they're coming, and you bunker yourself in and set up all your defenses. You ensure that you have plenty of water stored, is the maximum amount. You have your food, and you have your ammunition and your weapons all ready. You know, how long can the marauders stand there and fight you before they run out of food and water and ammunition? That's what a siege is about. That's what bunkering in and fighting to the death is about. If they engage, you engage. If they put their head up, you shoot at it. You know, I don't see bunkering in and fighting to the death as hopeless, the way some people have talked about as being hopeless. I see it as a very viable alternative to bugging out and taking those other risks. You can bunker in and outwait someone. You know, they may be out there where there may be water, and they may have some food, but they don't know how much food you have, how much water you have, and the closer they get, of course, your firepower, how much you show them, right? If they're 300-400 yards away, you may put a round across their bow and try and hit one every chance you get. But when they get within 200 yards, you're going to start peppering them with a lot more ammo, letting them know that the closer they get, the more that hornet's going to sting. You know, and if you live in the city, you've got similar scenarios. So where I'm going with this is bug out for you or bunker in for you and fight to the death. That's going to have to be part of your plan. It's going to have to be part of your plan. I would like you, while you plan, to weigh all the pros and all the cons. You know, try and minimize the cons. Try and maximize the pros of what you do. You know, if you know that you're going to probably have to run, I think that in urban environments, there'll be a lot more bugging out because there'll be a lot more marauders. And perhaps in a rural environment, there might be more people that are inclined to bunker in. They know their property. They know it's, you know, hard to get to. And it's probably going to be, being rural, different than the marauders who may be coming from a nearby city. They won't know the environment, and they'll be able to operate in a guerrilla fashion and destroy them through attrition or just outliving them in a siege, right? If I was a marauder and I was taking a house every mile down the road, and it was relatively easy pickings, and I got to a bunkered estate, an armored estate, a fortified estate that I was taking fire from, I would probably, like any good, what would we call this, fucking carrion, like any good predator, I would take the easy pickings first. So in SHTF, bunkering in and fighting to the death, I don't think is a bad move. I just think if you plan on doing it, understand what a siege is and how they operate. Don't think that standing behind a 2x6 wall that has a sheetrock on the inside and plywood on the outside is having protection from fire. That is not cover. You know, that's barely concealment if you're peeking out from behind that. You know, learn how to harden your house if it's not already a hardened style operation. You know, understand avenues of approach. You can get a lot of field manuals from the Marine Corps, from the Army about avenues of approach, how to cover them, and learn your combat if you're not going to bug out and just run for it. People that bug out and they can run and stay on the move, you know, they don't have to worry about that quite as much as the people who bunker in. So that's my advice with regard to bunkering in. As for bugging out, if you know the environment and you feel comfortable spreading your supplies then, and they're well hidden, well cached, you know, whether they be guns and bullets, or whether they be bandages and food, right? Whatever you have out there, be sure it's safe. And there's a third option I want to talk about here. And this may be a little bit for the more advanced people, maybe men and women with military experience. Say you know the marauders are coming after a month. Would you consider a bluff, a fake, a feint? Would you bug out and appear to have left your place and abandon it, only to circle back around and pick them off and put them in the situation you were in? right? Feeling comfortable and safe. Having hidden a lot of your food away. Hopefully people have hiding places for a lot of stuff they have to make it difficult for the casual marauder or the casual scavenger, if they were to fall upon it, to carry it away. Anyways, would you feel comfortable in bugging out and then turning around a day later and coming in and picking them off one at a time, and then returning yourself to your original or primary place of safety? I've thought about all the scenarios. Which one's going to work best for me with the people I have? And it also depends on whether you're urban or rural or remote or suburban. A lot of this depends on what you've got. If you live down in the swamps, can you bug out? If you live up in the mountains, can you bug out? If you bunker in the swamp, are you going to be able to keep people from getting to you? Are they going to be able to approach you without you knowing it, right? So again, I think that knowing your environment and trying to think like a marauder or a bad guy is a safe and good bet, right? The better your plan, the better you'll be able to counter what's brought against you. And by God, if you decide that bunkering in is your thing, do your very best to be able to address them and to live out a short siege with them. Remember, they need food and they need supplies, and they won't have supply trains. So, you may be able to wait them out in a siege situation. Anyways, I don't want to give any advice here, but I do want to raise the options, see if I can bring up some points to get you thinking. So let me know what you think. What is best, what is worst, where it works, where it doesn't, etc. This is The Prepared Mind, wishing you a good night.